All right, so like I said, today we're going to be covering the Field Edge mobile training. It's going to be session 2 of our 5 core sessions. This one is super handy for technicians out in the field. If you are a technician and you'd like to follow along and you have the mobile app installed and set up for you, feel free to do so. So real quick, right now we're looking at the first screen that we come to on Field Edge mobile. It's going to be our home screen. So a couple different things that I do want to mention here. Right up at the top, this is going to be our most recent work order or whichever work order we're working on. So whatever it would be prominent for us to see is what's going to display here. And I can see what status we're currently in. I can see the address. I can see what we're going out there to fix. And I can see when I'm supposed to be there. So this one's red, and it looks like I was supposed to be there yesterday because I'm running a little bit late. So next we have the work orders. The work orders, if we click on this, it's going to go ahead and take me to a list of all of my different work orders. So you've got 3 on me right now. Stay on the home screen for just a second here. Just at a glance, I can see how many work orders I have assigned to me. The number of work orders that I can see that I have assigned to me is set per technician. So I might have a technician that can see maybe 3 calls, or I might be able to have a technician that can see his entire week. Maybe they're a sales guy. So there's a lot of flexibility there. We can really personalize it, and you guys can play with it and figure out what works best for you. Then next we have our timesheets. This is going to be our time tracking for the day. This is a super, super handy portion because it's how the technicians are going to end up getting paid. So I haven't started my day yet, so it says I've worked 0 hours and 0 minutes. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on this little clock here. And right now it's gray. But when I tap on it, we'll notice it becomes green. And it's saying that I've been working for 15 hours now. I forgot to clock out last night, so I'll have to go ahead and fix that on the back end. But in my case, it's a training database, so I'm not too worried about it. And then what this will track is going to track a couple different things. So it can track our travel time. So when we go into a work order, we set our time to traveling. It'll calculate that time. Once we set our status to working, it'll start counting working time. So we can see how much time we actually spend on the jobs. It'll also track idle time. Now, idle time is going to be kind of the in-between. Oh, excuse me. So idle time is going to be kind of the in-between where you're not in a job and you're not working. Maybe you don't have anything set to traveling or working. Everything's in pending. This might be maybe your lunchtime, or it could just be maybe you forgot to clock in. It can also track his idle time as well. So those are the differences in time. Clocking out is just as simple as clocking in. I can just go ahead and click on the little clock down here, and it's going to go ahead and clock me out. And then when I clock back in, it's going to go ahead and pick up where I left off. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump into the work order section here. And here I can see a couple of different things. So I can see the different work orders I've got, when I'm supposed to be there on the right side. So I've got a couple from yesterday, and then I've got one at 8:30 today. Down at the bottom, I've got a couple different buttons. So just real quick high-level overview of these. The first one is going to be a filter. So if I want to see the jobs that I completed, I could do that. It doesn't look like I completed anything recently. And then if I want to see the jobs that I have for tomorrow, I can do that as well. Don't have anything scheduled just yet. And then all is going to show me everything. Now, most of the time, you're going to live on the current. That's going to show us just kind of the most relevant information. Then I've got my sort button. This will just change how these different work orders are organized. So if I want to see it by customer name, I can do that. Then I'll go ahead and reorganize them by customer name. But for the most part, I like to stay on time just because it kind of gives me a list of the things I need to get done through the day. So I'm going to start with this work order for Christina. I'm going to do Jordan, and then I'm going to go back to Christina. One more icon you'll notice up here is it's like a little cloud with a down arrow. If I go ahead and I click on that, it's actually going to download all of my work orders. I'll go and click on that real quick. It's going to ask us if we want to go into offline mode. Offline mode is super handy when you're working in areas that don't have the best signal. Maybe you're in a basement or you're in an attic and the signal's not great. We can go ahead and we can pop into offline mode. What that's going to do is it's going to download everything that you need for that work order. You can make any changes that you need offline. And then when you're ready, maybe at the end of the job, you can go ahead and switch back to online mode, and it's just going to go ahead and upload all those changes to the office. When I'm in offline mode, we'll notice that I've got kind of a little lock and keyhole on all these. That is going to lock them in the office. So here in the field now we have full control of these dispatches. We can make any changes that we need to. And then when we're done, we'll go up here, we'll click the cloud again. And do we want to upload offline work? I'll click upload. Then it's going to go ahead and send all that to the office. Then if I need to refresh this list, as with really anywhere in Android or Apple, if I just click and drag down, it's going to go ahead and refresh that for me. So if I got a notification that I got a work order and for some reason I just don't see it here, I can go ahead and I can drag down and refresh. And that also works in offline mode. So you might still get a notification that you received a work order while you're in offline mode. Just click the screen and drag down, and that new work order should pop up for you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump into one of these work orders here. I'm going to go ahead and start on the one here for Christina. I'm just going to go ahead and click on that. And it's going to open up the work order. And as soon as it does, it's going to ask me if I want to set it from pending status, meaning we're not doing anything, to traveling status so that we're on our way. Thought process behind this is if you open the work order, you're probably on your way there. We'll go ahead and click traveling. Then we'll notice that my icon changes to a little truck. And then if we have communication templates set up in the office, we can also send a message to the customer automatically, maybe a text message that says, hey, our technician's on the way. Real quick, we've got a couple buttons up here for customer contact. So we can either call the customer, we can shoot them a text message, or we can shoot them an email. One thing I do want to highlight for you guys is that the call, text, and email do come from the technician device. So if you're a technician and you call it, it is going to call from the number on your phone. Same thing if you text. And if you email, it's going to open up whatever default email app you have. So if you have your personal Gmail account on there, it might try to open that up. Alternatively, if you have like a company Outlook on there, it'll open that up instead. So just something to be aware of when we're contacting customers through the mobile app. And then I can see work order numbers and customer numbers. But more importantly, I can see promise time, when we're supposed to be out there. I can see the task again, why we're going out there. And I've also got the timeline. So the timeline will kind of give me a high-level overview of the customer's account and their history. So it looks like we were just out there on the 7th for a different work order for Ben. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And now here I can see when it was scheduled, when we went out there, when it was assigned, what we went out there for, and then any notes. So it looks like he went out there for a part. That part was back ordered, and then it was set to complete. It looks like he ordered a motor and capacitor. All right, I'm going to go ahead and click back here. One other thing I do want to highlight is our attachments. I can go ahead and click on that. And that'll take me into the customer attachments. So here I can see different parts that we're ordering. I can see a custom form, and then I can see a couple of before and after pictures of different equipment. Now, if I click on the form, it'll actually open that form up for me, and I can see how that form had been filled out. So if it's like a maintenance checklist or an equipment-specific checklist, which we'll get into here in a little bit, I can see exactly what was filled out there. I can see if people signed it. we can get different information that way, so we know what was done last time we were out there. I can also always just click add here. So if I wanted to take a picture and add it, I could do that. All right, so now we're going to go to the next screen. So I'm going to go ahead and just slide over to the right. And it's going to take me to my equipment. So at a high level, I can see the different makes, the different models, their serial numbers. I can see their types. I can see their expiration dates. I can see just roughly the age based on the install dates. But I've got this one here, this train unit, that has a check mark on it. That lets me know that that's the one that we're going to go out and work on today. So that being said, if I do need to also go out and work on this upstairs system air handler, maybe I get on site and Christina says, hey, I'm having an issue with this one. I can just go ahead and click the box there. And as soon as I do try to make any change on the work order, it's going to pop up and say, hey, you're in traveling. Do you want to go ahead and set to working? Well, we're there now and we're working, so I'm going to go ahead and click yes. I do want to note there that I'm broadcasting my phone to a computer, so mine might be running a little bit slower than normal. All right, so now we changed our status, so now it's going to let me go ahead and check that upstairs system air handler. I can also click on any of these pieces of equipment, and it'll open them up, and I can get some really handy information. So again, I can see up at the top, I can see the make and the model, the type of equipment that it is, the serial number. I can also see the exact installation date, parts warranty, expiration. If there was a labor warranty, I'd see that too. Any additional information. And then in the office, when we're setting this equipment up, we can actually do comments and links. So we can say, it needs this type of belt or this type of filter. And then I can also include a hyperlink to our service manual or a service manual that's maybe on Train's website, and I can have a PDF there. That is super helpful for including things like explosion diagrams of different things. So I'm looking at this unit and I need to know exactly where part goes. And if I'm in the office and I've set this up, I might have the service manual there and I can go ahead and I can just click on that and it'll open it up. And then I can start seeing the different explosion diagrams, and then I've got access to the entire manual, so I can really read through there and get whatever information I'm going to need. That's going to help me get this solved as soon as possible. Up at the top, I can also click edit, and I can change anything. So maybe we go out there, and I realize that the serial number wasn't entered right. Maybe it's not a 5 on the end, it's a 6. I can go ahead and I can change that. And so just go click save there. So now it's going to go ahead and update that equipment for us. Go ahead and go back. One thing I do want to highlight, if you're at a commercial area and they have a ton of equipment, we do have the search field up here. So maybe you're working on a hotel and they've just got a whole ton of units. We can find the one that we want, whether it's serial number, whether it's the name that we've assigned it, the make, the model. We can search by pretty much anything that we need to, and I can just pull it up that way. I've also got this add button up here. That's going to let us add equipment. I'll go ahead and I'll get into that here in just a little bit. All right, the next screen I'm going to have is going to be our forms screen. So here it doesn't look like I have any forms. Let me actually go back, and we're going to work on this unit too. All right, so we can see that I have all of my different types of equipment here separated. So I can have forms for each one of them that are specific to that type of equipment. I can also see my task form. So maybe I go out for a maintenance and there's always a maintenance checklist. In the office, I can designate that if we go out for a maintenance call, that task is automatically, or that form is automatically going to be there based on the task. So when we're creating that work order in the office, I can go ahead and I can select the agreement maintenance task. And then when I do that, every time the technician gets a call with that task on it, there'll already be a form here. In this case, I don't have one set up for the no cool job that we're on. So I'm going to go ahead and click add. So I know there's a form that I'm going to want to put on here. And then we can say the AC service checklist. I'll go ahead and click save. So I can see the task type. I can see that this looks like it's a commercial service checklist. I can see when the form was last modified. So if there's been any changes made to that form, we'll be able to know just kind of based on that. You can also see that it has incomplete required fields. On the different forms, we can say we need to have this field. Popular required field is signatures. We can also collect those. So I'm going to click on that. And then again, this is a training database, so it's going to be a little sparse, but we can get really as complex and detailed as we want with these. So I can go in here and I can put in different numbers. Filter condition, we'll say that they're all right, they're fair. And then bordered in red down here, I've also got my signature. I'm going to click on that. And we can sign it. And I'll click done. And now I've completed that form. So I can click save. And now that little red description there has gone away. But we're going to go and say that maybe I was a rebel today. And I did not collect the signature. So I'm going to open the signature back up. I'm going to click edit at the top. When I choose edit, it's going to say that the signature will be deleted. Click OK. That's fine. I'm going to save this. And then we'll see what happens later on when I try to complete it with an incomplete field. Now I can also add forms that are specific to the equipment. In the office, I can also set up that certain types of equipment have a certain form associated with them. So if I have a different form that needs to be filled out for an inspection on an air handler, I could put that there. Or if it's a tankless water heater, we could do that as well. Then again, I can always just come in here and I can select different forms. So the different types of forms, the different types of equipment are going to have, or they can possibly have different forms associated to them. So go ahead and we'll add that one. And then we'll fill this one out. There we go. And we'll save that one. Then I could just repeat that process for the upstairs system air handler, and then this train TAM7 I've got here. All right, so we're going to slide right again. And now we're going to be looking at the items section of the app. This is where we're going to build our invoice. It's also where we can go ahead, we can sell an agreement. So while we're out there, we want to go ahead and say, hey, if you check out this maintenance plan, you'll get a discount today. That sounds good. It keeps their system running longer, and it saves them money. So real quick, we're just going to go ahead and add an item. So I'm going to click on Add Item here. And it's going to open up my visual price book. And then we can see here that I do HVAC and plumbing. So we're going to go in here, and we're working on some air handlers, so it's going to be under HVAC. We'll do HVAC service. Maybe under service items. I can go ahead and I can select my truck charge. You can also come into general. We have a diagnostic fee. And then there's a whole lot of stuff inside of each of these categories. And while yes, I can go through and I can click them like we just saw, it can also be super beneficial to just search for the items that I'm looking for. So if I come back to this screen and I search for, we'll say it's a capacitor. I'll go ahead and I'll just get a list of any capacitors that I've got. And that'll be based off of category. It'll search for the description. So anywhere that we've got a capacitor, I'm going to find it. And I can go ahead and I can just add that. There we go. One thing I do want to draw attention to is that the search feature goes from the level that you're on down. So what that means is under my plumbing and plumbing service, I've got a toilet repair there. So if I'm on my main screen here and I type in toilet repair, whoop, still can't type yet this morning. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get that toilet repair. But if I go into my HVAC options here, and now I search for toilet repair, they're just toilet, I'm not going to get anything because toilet repair is not under HVAC. That's going to be under our plumbing division. So it is kind of smart in the way that it's going to search things. It's not going to give you irrelevant results. But if you are having trouble finding something at the highest level, you can always go back to the categories and we can just search here. All right, so there are going to be certain parts that use a lot. Maybe things like the truck charge or a diagnostic fee, your labor item. We might not want to always search for those. So we have a better way of finding those. So I'm going to come in here to HVAC again, and we'll go to HVAC services. And I've got my labor per hour. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And I'm going to open that up. And here I can see information, so I can see my standard price. I can also see the price that my customer gets if they have an agreement with us. And then I can also see how much the customer would save. This is a super handy selling tool, especially for agreements. So customers on their agreement, hey man, you could have saved $50 today if you had an agreement with us. It really ends up just saving you a ton of money. It keeps your system running longer. All around, it's a good deal. So again, we can use that kind of as a selling tool and kind of get more agreements out there. I've also got the descriptions, and I can associate it to equipment. So if this labor is going to go specifically on that upstairs unit, I can click on that. But it was a little bit of a tangent. Let's go ahead and get back to what we were talking about. So favorites. So items that I am going to use all of the time. That's going to be stuff, again, like my truck charge, my labor per hour. Maybe there's like a miscellaneous item that I find that I'm just using all the time. I can go ahead, and in the top left here, we've got this little star. I'll go ahead and tap that star. Now it's going to be gold. Then we go ahead and add this to the invoice here. I can also add it to a quote because we do on-the-fly quoting out in the field. But I'm going to go ahead and click Add Invoice. And it's going to add that. So up at the top here, I have that same little gold star. If I go ahead and click on that same little gold star, that's going to take me to my favorites. And my favorites is going to be just a list of all of the items that I've indicated that I want to see here. So again, this could be things like my diagnostic. So I want to have that on there. And then maybe there's just a miscellaneous code. That doesn't look like I've got one. At least not an HVAC service. So we're going to go back out to our categories, type in MISC here, and then there's my miscellaneous material. We'll just go ahead and add that. All right, so now what I can do is up in the top right, I've got this little invoice with a little number next to it. Just lets me know that I've added 5 items. If I go and tap on that, it's going to ask me what equipment I want to associate this. I'm going to click OK. I've already associated it. I'll have to get that one checked out. All right. If I click on that, it's going to go ahead and take me back to my home screen. There we go. All right. So I can see all of the items that I've added. And I can see that we've got our truck charge, we've got our diagnostic fee, I've got the capacitor, I've got my labor. I also got a miscellaneous part on there. Maybe I installed, I don't know, I used some tape or something like that. We just want to make sure that gets costed. So let's say that maybe the customer doesn't want to do the capacitor repair just yet. I can go ahead and I can click on the little capacitor there. And I can just drag it down under the quote section. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to build a quote for that customer, just on the fly, super easy. With that, obviously might come the labor. And now I've got a quote for the customer. So when I complete this, it'll send them the invoice for our diagnostic on our truck charge. We can also send them the quote. That way they can, have it, and then maybe a week down the road, I'll go ahead and say, you know what, yeah, I want to go ahead and pull the trigger on that. If you're using an iPhone, one thing I do want to mention here is that I'm on an Android device. So on the Android device, you can click anywhere on the item and just drag it around. Just click and hold for a second. It'll pop it out and you can just move it. On the Android devices, on the right side, there are going to be these three little lines right about here. You're going to want to click and hold on those, and then that'll let you slide it up and down. Just one kind of quirk between the two formats. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the items from that quote back onto the invoice because we're going to build those. So while I was out there talking to the customer, I mentioned you could have saved amount, and they want to go ahead and they want to sign up for an agreement. Super easy process. Right up here under agreement, I can just select an agreement. And they're going to sign up for our gold plan. And then I get some information here. So if we want to go ahead and kind of pitch the different tiers to the customer, I can click on each of them and I can get more information. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and go with our gold plan. So I'm going to go ahead and click select there. So now the customer is going to be purchasing our gold plan. And you might have noticed that this labor per hour has now dropped in price because they have our agreement item here. It's going to sell them that agreement, and they're immediately going to start getting the benefits of that agreement. Now, once we sell this out in the office will finish the agreement configuration setup, which is going to be something that we handle in session 4. But we can definitely absolutely go ahead and sell the agreements from mobile. Our next screen here is going to be our billable or non-billable items. Non-billable items are going to be items that we are not charging the customer for, but that we still need to keep track of for things like costing. No matter what, whenever you're on a call, we should always have something, either on an invoice or under non-billable parts. If we're going out there, it's costing us money somewhere. So even if it's just the fuel charge on the invoice, or if we go out and we replace if we're doing a maintenance agreement and we go out and we replace a filter, well, the filter still has a cost associated to it. So we would add that as a non-billable part. So we'll say I'm going to go ahead and give them a filter, and we'll do a 20 by 20 by 1. And then we'll go ahead and we'll add that. It's going to ask me which piece of equipment I'm going to associate it with. Go ahead and select that TAM7 there. Click OK. All right, so now what's going to happen is this filter, the customer is not going to get charged for it. But back on the office, this is going to get costed. So it's super helpful for profitability. Any items that you are using that we're not necessarily charging the customer for, that we still need to keep track of inventory for, and also make sure our costing is correct. This is where we're going to put those. Next screen is going to be part requests. Part requests are really a beast unto themselves. So I'm going to go over them just kind of briefly here, but for a more in-depth look at them, we do have a training that actually runs today at 2 p.m. And I'm going to be talking all about part requests. So like I said, it's kind of its own topic, so we do a separate training for that. And we'll go ahead and we'll handle that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click on Add Request Expense. I'm going to get a couple options here. So I can do a part request from the invoice, part request from the quote, and then credit on expense. Give me just 1 second here. Nope, looks like I'm having some technical difficulties. Give me just 1 second. All right, should be back. I apologize for that. Had some technical difficulties. All right. So real quick, we're going to go ahead and touch on the part requests here, just all on their own. Again, it's a kind of a whole nother beast. So I'll go into more depth on that today on a training for part requests at 2 p.m. Eastern time. But real quick, we're just going to do a high-level overview. So I can click Add here, do part request from invoice or part request from quote. That'll just let me select items from each of those. And then I can choose expenses, or if I have to go back and I have to return something on an expense, we can go ahead and do that. Part requests are going to be things that are going to stop us from working. So maybe I go out and I need to replace a motor. And I have to order that motor, and it's going to take a couple of days to get in. I'm not going to be able to keep working on this job. We're going to go in, we're going to do a part request. Expenses are going to be things where maybe I run to the supply house, I need to pick up a part, I run to Home Depot, I grab that part, and then we bring it back to the office. So again, those do get a little bit more complex, so I'm not going to spend too much time on them. But if it's something that you are interested in, check out our training today at 2 p.m. Eastern time. Then finally, we have our complete screen. So I can see all of the items we've added on the invoice. See our subtotal, I can see the tax codes total, and this customer's COD, so I can see that my minimum due is going to be $567. And I can go ahead and I can take payment. We'll see when I scroll down, I've got some signatures here as well. So we're going to go and take payment. It's going to take me here. I'm going to click on my method. And then I could do, say, American Express. Now, if you're using Field Edge payments or any other integrated payment solution, this screen will look a little bit different for you. It'll basically just give you the option to swipe. We'll have a swiper that connects to the phone. You swipe the card, and it just runs the payment. But for ease of use today, we're going to say we did a check. We'll put in that check number. And we'll click Submit. You can also do split payments. So if they pay some cash, some check, I can just click on Add Another Payment, and it's going to go ahead and let us break that out. All right, scrolling down, we've got the acceptance signature. This is going to be that the customer accepts that the work has been completed. We can kind of reformat these and use them for whatever we need to, but for the most part, so this one's going to be designed for. So I can go ahead and tap on that. Then I can hand the phone to the tablet to the customer, and I can just have them sign. Go ahead and click Done there. And now I've gone ahead and I've taken the signature. I can always click on that signature again. Maybe it was a bad copy or something's changed on the invoice, then we'll need that. So view email invoice, that's going to let me actually get a preview. If I have a printer in my truck and I want to hand the customer a paper copy, this is going to be super handy. I can go ahead and I can click on that. And then as soon as I'm done with this invoice, it's going to pop me up a PDF preview, and I can just print that. I can also see any attachments that we've got. So I'll go ahead and click on that. And then I can see those two forms. So we're going to send those two forms to the customer in this case. Then I go ahead and click Complete. And it's going to bark at me. I do have to have the signature on that required form, so any required field really, in order to proceed. So it's immediately going to take us back there. It's going to jump us to the form that's having the issue, and I can see right away that the top form there has, some fields that need to be figured out. So I'm going to click on that. I forgot to put my John Hancock in there. Go ahead and sign that. Click Save. And now I've gone ahead and finished that up. Go ahead and scroll over to our complete screen again. And we'll try one more time. We'll say we perform the work. And it's going to go ahead and it's going to communicate with the office. It's going to send all the items that we put on the invoice up if we're in offline mode or any other relevant information. Try that again. Looks like our Wi-Fi might be having some issues. Go ahead and change my network here. I'm gonna jump off Wi-Fi. Give it a second to finish. And select work performed. There we go. So now it's going to go ahead and send all that information out to the office. And then it's just going to refresh everything for us so we can make sure we have the most updated information when we go back to our work order list. So I can see here that now I've completed that one. It's gone. And if I switch over to my completed list, that's going to be there. All right, so maybe you are out in the field and you're on call. So if you're out in the field and you're on call, you might need to create a work order for yourself. So you can do that a couple different ways. So right here, I have an add button. I can do it there. Or from home, I can just click on the little plus. It's going to take me to my customers. And I can search for a customer here. So we'll search for last name Jones. And I'll search there. We can also just search by address or phone number. Address is typically going to be the most accurate. As you can see here, I've searched Jones and I've got 5 or 6 different results. But we're going to go and just create one for Jordan here. And I can see if Jordan owes us any money. Payment status here. I can select a task, priority, all the different fields that I would have in the office. But if you're on call, maybe it's the new customer that's calling in. So I can go ahead and I can click on that plus again. In the top right, I have the add button. I can go ahead and I can click add there. And it'll take me to the customer creation screen. So this one is going to be very similar to the one that's in the office. Obviously, the format's a little different, but most of the same information is there. So if it's a sub customer, we can put it under a certain customer. I go ahead and I can fill out the name, all the other information, all the way down to the terms and the tax code for that customer. We can also add any notes. But let's go ahead and we're going to use Jordan here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and create this call for Jordan. We're going to select our task. So while we're going out there, say the AC is leaking. We can select our priority. It's getting everywhere. We're going to go ahead and set that to high. And then where it says Facebook here, that's going to be the call lead source. So essentially how the customer heard of us. Jordan has on his profile in the office, Facebook selected. So that's going to go ahead and carry through. Then I could add any notes. So upstairs unit is leaking. And then I've got a couple of options here. I can click book for later. What that's going to do is it's going to go ahead and give me a schedule, and I can select the day and the rough time frame. It'll be a time block that I want to go out there. Or I can click on assign to me. Assign to me will set it to me for right this moment, and then I'll be able to just go out, I'll have access to the call. Whereas if I do book for later, it goes to unassigned, so I'm not actually going to see that call unless I've got supervisor mode, which is the last thing that we're going to cover, just real quick. So we're going to be booked for later. I'm going to say, we're going to go out there today. We can get out there at 10. We'll book that for later. So I've gone ahead and I've assigned that. One thing I do want to get into is supervisor mode, just at a very high level. If I click on the menu up in the top left, then I'm going to have a couple options here. So customers is going to be that same customer screen we were just looking at. Price book is just going to let me go through the items in the price book without actually having a work order. But I've got supervisor mode here, so I'm going to click on supervisor. What that's going to do is it is going to show me any unassigned calls I've got. I can click on time so I can see just where things are at for different time slots today. I can also see stuff by the technician. And I've also got another add button here for new work orders. So in this case, we just created this call for Jordan Jones. I can see I've got a little red section here, which indicates that it's going to be high priority. So I'm going to go ahead and get that one scheduled first. I'm just going to click on it. Then I've got notes. Click tap to assign. We'll click add. I can say, maybe we'll do 9 a.m. instead. I can select a technician. It's going to tell me if they have matching skill. And then I'll click assign. What that's going to do is it's going to send that technician out there. So in my case, I assign it to myself. So if I come back here, now I can see that I've got that call for Jordan. Then again, I'm going to open it up. So let's go ahead and say we get out to Jordan. And the AC is leaking all over the place. But we go to their equipment screen and it's blank. Maybe we haven't serviced Jordan before. He's a new customer. I need to add that equipment in here. Maybe I want to stop the leak first, but when I get a chance, I'm going to go ahead and add the equipment. Super easy. Click on add equipment here. It's going to ask me if I want to set to working. I'll go ahead and click yes. Then we can go ahead and we can add equipment. So I can select from a list of equipment that we've already utilized in the past. I can search the list. So as you go out and you're servicing people, the list might get pretty long. That's okay. But I can also add new manufacturers and models. So maybe this is the first time I'm seeing a Ream unit. I can just go ahead and click on add new manufacturer model and it'll run me through that. In this case, we're going to say he's got a train. We'll do TAM7 here. And it's going to go ahead and pull the settings that we have from the office. So the office, this is set up as a train. Got my model here. And then here it says train/TAM7. That is going to be our display name. I do highly recommend changing this to something that makes a little bit more sense. So maybe where the unit's at, something that's very popular. I'll go ahead and click on that. We'll go and we'll say this is the upstairs unit. And I can see it's an air handler. Can enter in our serial number. And then if it was installed by us, I can go ahead and check that box. If I do check that box, then it's going to go ahead and say, hey, we installed it today because it wasn't there previously. And then it also sets the warranty expiration and labor expiration date or dates based on what we have set up in the office. So in this case, we're going to say this was already here. And we can just ask the customer, or maybe it says it on the plate that's there. When was this installed? I always recommend capturing an install date, even if it's rough, as what it's going to let us do is in the office, we'll be able to see, roughly, when a unit is older, maybe about 10 years, as the flag that we've got. It might flag it for replacement. So starting to get a little bit older, maybe we want to think about replacing it. And I can also set a labor or warranty expiration dates if so needed. Additional information. So I can put more information on where the unit's at or anything that's specific to this unit. So maybe this one will be in the attic. Just any notes that'll be helpful for another tech that's going out there. And then we'll click on save. Now we've gone ahead and we've added the equipment. And I can see that because this is 11 years old, it's red. that could be a good indicator for me to maybe say, let's think about getting a new unit. All right, guys, so that is going to be it for the Field Edge mobile training. I'm going to go ahead and leave the chat open in case you guys have any questions for about another 10, 15 minutes or so. If you haven't already, definitely shoot me a message with your company and your name, and I'll make sure that we go ahead and we get a copy of this training out to you guys. Wes asks, upon completion of a work order, what is the difference between work completed and warranty? Those are what we call our resolution codes. It just kind of changes the way that it appears in the office. So work completed means that we went out there, we charged the customer for something, and then warranty would be maybe we go out there, we're not creating an invoice because we're not charging the customer. We're just going to have non-billable things. Just kind of lets us do some different filtering and reporting in the office. Bob asks, if a tech can see work orders scheduled for other technicians, they cannot unless they have access to supervisor mode, which is something we can set by technician. So if we don't have access to supervisor mode, then no, we'll only see things that are assigned to us. Wes asks, if a technician tries to add things to an invoice and then hits warranty upon completion, will it allow for that to happen? It will still let that happen. So even if we're going out there and we're doing warranty work and I find something that I do need to repair, we still have the option to sell things to the customer. Maybe they want to sign up for an agreement. We can go and we can do that there. Aaron asks, if a quote section for the items, the invoice goes directly to the customer, are those items visible in the office? The quotes do go back to the office, and we do have the option to send it directly to the customer. Tom asks how many units you can have on a single customer. I'm assuming you're talking about equipment. I don't know that there is an actual limit. The most that I have seen personally inside of a Field Edge database is about 300. So it's up there. Bob asks if you can also add videos as well as photos. No, not from mobile. So I can take pictures from mobile, and then when I take the picture, I can either open up my camera and I can do a snapshot, or I can go ahead and open my gallery and I can select from there. Videos would have to be uploaded in the office. Aaron asks if we can see non-billable items that the technician adds in the office. Yes, we can. There'll just be a section on the invoice for the non-billable items. So if you ever open up an invoice in the office and it's completely blank, we want to make sure we check that non-billable because there's probably stuff in there for cost. Aaron asks, for warranty parts, is it better to mark them in the invoice with a $0 amount or put them on the non-billables? Really, that's up to you. So the customer is not going to see the non-billable parts, but if we want them to see that, then we could put it on the invoice with a $0 price. Uh, the cost on the back end, because the warranty part, well, that'll work out in the accounting on the QuickBooks side usually. But again, that one is completely up to you. It just depends whether or not you want to see or the customer to see that. Non-billable parts do get associated to equipment, so they do show up in equipment history. So if we go out for agreements and I replace filters, just a really simple example, but we're not charging them for them, I'm going to add those filters as non-billable parts because I'm not going to bill them for those because they're an agreement customer. And then it's going to go ahead and associate that to the equipment.